Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be in the cosmos, in the vastness of space, in this now moment, this no moment in time. My name is Rocken Larry Locken, and you're listening to Pleiadian Express Productions, Pleiadian Talk. Have I got a show for you tonight? I have a guest that I have been wanting to talk to and interview for, well, before I even got into doing this. I had listened to this young man on YouTube for a couple of years before I found and got into all the Facebook groups. Sorry, I'm a little nervous here. I've got with me tonight A.C.L.A. alien contactee Linol Anderson, the Canadian Pleiadian alien contactee. Linol, how in the hell are you all the way up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, brother?
A.C.L.A. here with you guys. The original. Well, I'm doing fantastic, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Actually, now that we're on air and I got through that introduction, I didn't stumble through it too bad. But
Oh, perfect.
you
Oh,
know,
I'm happy to be here. It's been a long time in the making,
a
in the works.
long time in the making.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you hit me up last night. This was a good idea to do it today. I really felt the vibe was strong for it. And as we start getting into this, one of the things that I'm curious about, and I know we talked about in the pre-show, was what makes Linol Anderson tick? What made you decide to go this route and, start doing videos? What was the first spark that ignited that? Whether it was a TV show, a personality, if you could just kind of get into that and we can roll from there, man.
Right on. Well, I'll take it all the way back to my to when I was a young lad, to my childhood. What kind of got me interested into this whole topic, and it kind of relates back to the whole Pleiadian Starseed thing and everything. Pretty much when I was just a young guy, I always had a strong connection to the stars and space. Always very, very intrigued by that, and I was brought up in a religious upbringing, and I always said, and I remember, I think I was like 8 years old when I said this, and I thought the Bible was like a galaxy book or something. I knew it had something to do with extraterrestrials, and of course I was told, oh, aliens don't exist, they're demons, whatever, and we'll get to that later. But now through my research I've been doing, I surely do believe that it's definitely a book full of extraterrestrial experiences. But anyway, so that just goes to show you, from that young age, I knew there was some kind of alien connection. So as I started getting older, around 12, 13, that's when I really started to get into researching aliens and stuff, because I'd start watching movies like Star Wars. I know Signs with Mel Gibson. That was one of my favorites when I was 12, 13 years old. So I just really started researching it, but I still wasn't awake yet. I hadn't reached my awakening yet. So anyways, as the years went by, I started making YouTube videos. I was actually directing them. And I had a character who was my friend, and it's going to sound funny, but his name was the Naked Fat Boy Josh Hicks. And he was a bit chubbier friend of mine, and he'd pretty much take his shirt off and challenge people to fights. And it was pretty funny stuff. It was all comedy. But we came across this one guy, who I'll get into later on the show, but Gorilla199. And he was talking about reptilians, Freemasons, Pleiadians, all that stuff. So from that, we kind of had a laugh, because we were about 15, 16, and we kind of shifted our videos on the NFB account and started talking about Freemasons, 2012, because this is long before 2012, reptilians, Pleiadians, and it really took off. But we kind of had a fight, or whatever you want to say, and we stopped making videos. So I said to myself, do you know what? Screw it. I'm pretty much telling him what to do in the show anyways, so I'm going to character and go with it. So that's when I made my account that I still have today, which has now over 2 million views, the Alien Contactee. and everybody should check that out. That's my main YouTube thing. So when I first started the Alien Contactee account, um, I still wasn't fully awakened yet. I did a lot of research into Pleiadians, reptilians, and all that, but it was still a lot of satire. If anybody's been watching my videos, they know that I did a lot of satire in the earlier days. So for the first year or so on that account, it was total satire, but still I had a good understanding because I looked into Pleiadians, Greys, all that stuff. But then when 2012 came around, later on in 2012, around the December 21st, I believe that that wasn't the end of the world. I believe that was marking the new age. And I think a lot of people, I know for a fact, a lot of people that I've talked to, because I've talked to thousands of people, and a lot of them say that that's when they first woke up, was after December 21st, 2012. So that's when things started getting real for me. And I'd say that was my original awakening of when things got serious. So my videos still continued to be satire, but I'd start putting truths in there. And as the years went by, I started getting more serious and serious. And now if you watch my videos now, I do satire videos sometimes, but the way I see it, with the knowledge that I've been learning and how I've been taking this seriously, joke time's over, and we're living in some crazy times, and I feel as a starseed, a Pleiadian starseed, as through the years of my research, I finally figured out why I was so different when I was younger, and why I had such a strong connection to the stars and all that kind of stuff. It's because I believe I am a Pleiadian starseed, and I've always felt like I had a mission, and now my mission is very clear on what I'm here to do, and that's pretty much to spread love and pretty much inform people of what's going on here and wake up the zombies, because people need to start waking up. We are living in some pretty crazy times, and we could get into that a bit later. But that's pretty much my how everything all started, and how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were a Pleiadian starseed. I knew that the first time that I saw one of your videos, and this was, like I said, a couple years before I got into any of these Facebook groups myself, and it was probably around 2012 or 2013, because my awakening was in early 11. But I started listening. I found your videos on YouTube, and I knew right away. I said, "My fucking God, this guy is a total Pleiadian." Just sarcasm, your loving, witty sense of humor. It just reminded me of like how me and my best friend were, and he's the only awakened person like us that I know in 3D actually.
Hmm.
So it was really great to hear you, and the sarcasm was just great. And my friend was also watching one of your videos earlier today, one of your older ones, and he
Yep.
about laughing. And I told him, well, now though, like you just said, I said, the tone to his videos has gotten more serious over the last year or so,
Oh, for
because it's
sure.
really time to kick it into gear. And it just kind of, I like that, because that's the Pleiadian diversity of being witty and sarcastic like that, but yet putting it right back to people when you need to. I mean, that
Yeah.
warrior. It's not all about, oh, flying in the clouds and love and light and don't say anything that could offend anybody. Well, the Pleiadians, we created offending people when we need to get a point across. So I just really, your videos are great, whether you're being serious and putting it to people, and even when you're being funny, like you used to do, really like the whole video, it was still the tone to it. I could still see the serious tone to it, to wake people up, and that you're really a revolutionary, man. And I
Thank
think
you.
it's great. You mentioned also, reading the Bible when you were younger. And I love the way you put it, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chariots of the Gods by Eric von
Yep.
Däniken.
I sure am.
But he really looked at the Bible that way too. He looked at it from, okay, these stories are true for the most part, but the way they're interpreted is just crazy. I mean, they, and in the churches too, they want you to believe. in some fairies on a cloud playing a harp, but they don't expect you to believe in extraterrestrials or star beings or that we came
Yep.
from stars. And I just, and I'm sure that that kind of didn't sit well with you either growing up. And you're like, well, what the hell? But I like the way you put that about it being kind of a galaxy star map, the Bible. I mean, there's
Yes.
so many things in there. I mean, Noah's Ark to me obviously was an ET ship, and it obviously they meant two of every DNA sample to save over, not two of every actual goddamn animal to fit in there. But who knows? And I just really appreciate that in your groups. I forgot to mention at the beginning, NWO Freedom Fighters, your Facebook group,
Mm.
great, and I'm in as well, and also your channel, NWO Freedom Fighters, and of
And
course
the alien contactee.
and the alien contactee, the original one, man. So yeah, really I wanted to say that. And so where do you see as far as where we're at right now with all of this? I mean, I know that's kind of a broad question, but I mean, what's your take on kind of where we're at right now in this whole thing?
With the current world situation?
Yeah, the awakening. I mean, just the progress. Yeah, the current world situation.
Well, I got a lot to say about this, actually. Well, the awakening, I do believe is taking place, but don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of work to be done. A lot, because we are not the majority, the awake ones. Well, I hate to disrespect people, but like you're saying, you got to stick it to the truth. There's a lot of people who are brainwashed
Hmm.
severely still, and they consider the possibility of extraterrestrials, let alone or even government. They won't even accept government corruption that's already been exposed, and even mainstream media covers, and people refuse to even believe that because that's how brain. And one thing you got to know is that every single human on this earth has been born brainwashed because we've been born into this system, right? So it's all about deprogramming our brains from mainstream religions, all that, whatever, governments, and where was I going with this? Have one of those brain things. Yeah. Anyways,
Government. Yeah.
yeah. So, oh yeah. So the majority is still on the brainwash side. Although I think that people are starting, even if they may be very brainwashed, they're starting to realize that something's not right with the world. It's not sitting well with them. They know that there is some trouble. So I feel like our mission is just to wake them up. But into regard where we are, I think we are very, very, very close to the big event that's going to happen. I always say things got to get worse before they get better. And to reference one thing, you sent a video last night of David Icke and Jordan Maxwell. And I watched the video, and David Icke said something that I agree with 100%. He's saying it's going to be the children or the younger people in this generation that's going to unfold. And he does believe that love is going to rule the earth and everything, but there is going to be, things are going to get bad for a few years. And that's because the New World Order, they notice what's going on here. Their plans are pretty much backfiring on them. They see people are reaching a higher frequency, and for me, I believe it all comes down to reptilians. So they're low frequency beings, right? So they see us reaching a higher frequency, and we're progressing a lot, and they're scared. They're getting scared. We are a threat. We can't ever say to ourselves as humans that, oh, we can't change anything. We're just a human. Never underestimate the power of a human being. But anyways, yeah, we got so much power. We just need to believe in that. That's what it comes down to. So there's so many signs of what's happening. If anybody follows the news, like I don't encourage people to watch mainstream news. I watch it sometimes just because I know it's bullshit. So I just know what to pretty much anything they say, I think the opposite and go off that. But of course I do alternative research and everything, and we could see the way things are headed. And I firmly believe that World War III is very close, and I want to read something to you if that's all good. I don't know, Larry, are you familiar with Albert Pike?
Yes, I am, and you're more than welcome to go ahead and read anything that you want, brother.
Right on. So for those of you who don't know who Albert Pike is, he is one of the most known Freemasons out there. He's extremely high, 33rd degree, had a huge influence, and I'd say he was a dark occultist and had a bad agenda. But back in 1892, so this is before World War I or any of the world wars or any of this. And this just goes to show you that the elite, they've had this agenda for hundreds of years. You know, this is nothing new. So he wrote a letter to this guy named Giuseppe Mazzini in 1892 about the 3 world wars. And so I'm going to read you what he described the first 2 world wars, which, well, I'll just start now. This is what was in his letter for the First World War. It follows: the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of the making that country of a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. And what did we see? This is before 1914, the First World War, and what he said pretty much came true, just as I said. Then his Second World War, this was his prediction or whatever. And I also forgot to mention, he claimed that he got this knowledge from his spirit guide, which I believe was probably a reptilian entity. But anyways, Second World War, this is what he said was to happen. Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so the Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So what did we see? He's got it bang on again with World War II. Now this is where things really start getting real here, because what he says about World War III that's yet to take place is exactly what we're seeing what's going on in the world right now. So this follows: the Third World War must be fermented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and the political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other, which we see going on right now. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of the civilization and the multitude, delusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will fall from the moment, be without compass or direction, anxious for ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view, This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Now, my understanding, I don't think he had, well, maybe he talked to his spirit guide, but which I believe was a reptilian. But I think what we're seeing here is that he obviously knew the agenda, and this has been in works for a long time for him to be able to predict the first two world wars, and especially what's going on today. We see with what's going on in the Middle East and all that. Pretty much what he's saying is happening. So that is Albert Pike for you, a huge insider, 33rd degree Freemason, tied with several other organizations, Illuminati, you name it. So that is the first, or is a sign that there is something coming. And I just want to speak on the blood moons real quick as well. The blood moon started in April 2014, and the history of the blood moons the past 600 years. When they land on Jewish holidays, Sukkot and Feast of Tabernacles, in the past 600 years, we've had some major events happen involving Israel that changed the world. And I suggest everybody look that up. I'll post a video on the event page that I made a 20-minute video on it. But I said before April 15th, which was the first blood moon, I made a video, and I was saying, just wait. Huge stuff is going to happen. And everybody's like, oh, it's all garbage. These blood moons mean nothing. Because these 4 blood moons are all on Jewish holidays, Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacle. So I made the video on April 1st, 2014. Then April 15th happened, first blood moon came. And what since then? Because before April 15th, they were not talking about ISIS. The whole Gaza and Israel thing was not, they currently weren't in conflict at the time, and then right after that they started bombing each other, and everybody knows, if they've been keeping up to current events, what's happening with that. We've seen what's happening in Ukraine and Russia and the United States and Syria, and we have all these major world powers, UK, everywhere, even Canada. There's a lot of corruption here too, all joining together, and it's just screaming World War III is coming. And the next blood moon is April 4th, 2015, and the last one is September 28th, I believe. And the way I see it is this blood moon prophecy is already taking effect, and the facts are right there in front of us with all what's going on. So I just wanted to let you guys know on kind of the prophecies that are kind of being fulfilled here. And if you read ancient texts like the Bible, go into the Sumerians and Egyptian stuff, they all foretold of this end time, which I believe is the end, not the end of the world, but the end of this current system. There's going to be a new system to come, but things are going to get bad. That's pretty for a while before they get good. And I just think with everything that's happening, it's pretty clear that these prophecies are actually coming to be. So I'll hear your feedback on that, Larry.
Yeah, a couple of things. Yeah, exactly. I want people to understand too that Linol comes at this from an aspect of doing the research. Sometimes you hear people to get hung up on this ascension date, a blood moon, or this super moon, and oh God, this is coming. It's this big, this big ordeal's coming, but they don't realize that it is. But all these things they're steps in the process of having this happen. And with World War III, like you mentioned, I think what's happening is all these dark energies, like you mentioned, they're coming to the surface, and this is a cleansing point, sort of cleansing that dark energy from Earth. And World War III, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be some kind of a nuclear exchange on Earth, because in my mind, I personally don't think that's going to be anything like that, but there's going to be a lot of chaos and people
Chaos.
what the hell's going on. Yeah, mass chaos to divide. I know that, my dad's still trying to awaken, and he's hung up on this ISIS bullshit and watching the news 24/7.
Hmm.
Oh, doom and gloom, doom and gloom. And it's like he really doesn't see the big picture and realize how fucked up it is, yet he doesn't realize that it's about people awakening. I mean, we're in this transition phase really since 2012, I believe, in the 36-year galactical shift that started in 94, 2012,
Hmm.
kind of a halfway point. We made it to that. We're kind of in that transition phase to end times, and end times meant a better time. Could have
Exactly.
You could use the analogy that it's the transition into what we call the golden age. But all these things were foretold, and people need to understand that it's not quite as bad as you think, but it's a whole hell of a lot worse than you can imagine both. Which means you need to take everything into perspective. And yeah, this corruption and dark energy dies hard, and they're circling the wagons, and they don't want to give up their roost. And that's just kind of the cleansing process we're going through, man. That's kind of how I look at it right now. And yeah, I agree. And I don't want somebody to get hung up listening to this and think, oh, we're speaking a bunch of doom and gloom, and this is going to get this. No, this is
Yeah.
a learning curve for us as humanity. This is our chance to either stay in the matrix and turn out like a bunch of computerized robots like the Greys, or we can ascend like the Pleiadians and take our rightful spot in the cosmos as a galactic society and do all this shit through consciousness, all these inventions through consciousness that we need, not through greed purposes. Like the automobile, if the automobile was invented out of consciousness, it would have been a hovercraft to start with, not some vehicle that sucked all the oil and out of the earth and with 100-year-old technology, to where it just kept making more money and more money and more money. And money's really a joke too. I mean, why that was created, I don't know. It had to be for power, a barter system.
100%. It's a control system. It's meaningless, really, and it's just a way to control us and enslave us. But it sucks because you need money to live, right?
Yeah, you do. In 3D, you really need money to live. I just think back on what the basic principle was on starting banks and starting a money system when all the resources are here on Earth we need, but they've just been hoarded. I mean, everything's there for everybody in the world to have everything they need. And to me, it's just so obvious. And we've really been kept under a dark cloud, under a quarantine, whatever you want to call it. And and not to get off topic here, but in a lot of your videos and stuff, I know that you've gone into the moon and Mars and all of that. And how do you how do you see all that? I mean, I think the Pleiadians might have took back the moon, actually, maybe, and Mars, maybe they're working on it. I just don't know. And the rings of Saturn. And how do you see, like David Icke talks a lot about that? If you could touch on that for me, not to get off topic, but how do you see Mars, the moon, and Saturn playing into this? If you want to take that and roll with it.
Well, Mars right now. Oh, this is gonna get deep. Mars, they already got bases up there, and this is even in the mainstream, and they've already they got space robots up there and everything. It's a fact, and they're already taking applications for scientists and all different people of different positions of knowledge and power to actually years go there and live on Mars, because they're saying now they think we could live on Mars. So you got to question yourself, why do they want to get off Earth here? And we'll come to that later. This is all theories, really. When it comes to the moon, um, David Icke has some very interesting interpretations on that, saying the moon is pretty much like a almost like a major base, perhaps the craft or a hologram of you instead. And even mainstream science is starting to on how the moon might just be a big hologram. It's very deep, confusing stuff, but I know definitely that there is alien activity on the moon. I've done a lot of research on multiple astronauts who've been on space, on the moon, and they've talked about the dark side of the moon, and Pink Floyd, gotta love Pink Floyd, but yeah, dark side of the moon. They've talked about bases being up there, and there's been a lot of cover-ups regarding all this. So I definitely think there is a lot of against that. When it comes to Saturn, I don't know. What I know, I don't think. I think it's a very gassy planet, and I don't think humans are able to survive there. But maybe other entities. But I know in mythology and back in the pagan belief system and all that, and the New World Order and I'm very sorry, I'm very I know a lot about the cult and whatnot, and they use Saturn a lot in their symbolism. And for example, Saturday, that's Saturn Day. Every day of the week is different. So I agree, there's something to do with Saturn, and from what I hear, different people saying that people were, or the elites, the Illuminati, the New World Order. So I wish I could emphasize more on that. I do believe there's a important to it, but and I believe with the whole Mars thing, one possible scenario is the elites know that this coming change is coming, and they pretty much want to get the hell off Earth. That's one possibility, because Nibiru might be coming if people are aware of the whole Nibiru situation, which I want to start talking about the Anunnaki soon here. But that's a whole different topic. But that's pretty much what I got to say. I'm not the biggest expert on it, but I do know there's a lot of extraterrestrial activity on the moon, and Saturn is, and Mars, to send the elites up to Mars, because they already got bases up there and are taking applications for people living up there. So you got to ask yourself why they want to start moving people up to Mars. If it's a theory, but we do.
I think you cut out there for a second, Lionel, but yeah, I agree, and I think we can move on to the Anunnaki, but I wanted to also say, yeah, the moon definitely has ET activity going on it. I can see it. I mean, even with the naked eye sometimes it gets so low. The color of the moon's different now. I almost think you mentioned it maybe being a craft. I almost think that son of a bitch is going to land some nights. It gets so low, and it didn't used to be that low. It seems like it used
Hey,
to.
Larry, are you there, bud?
Yeah, are you here? Yeah.
I got cut off. I
Oh,
got cut
oh,
off.
yeah.
I'm back on, but I missed what you were saying there. Did everybody hear what I was saying throughout that, or was I cut off for a while?
You were cut off just for a couple of seconds. I think that yeah, you had finished your point, but what I was saying was before I was wanting to get onto the Anunnaki too and talk a little bit
Hmm.
about Nibiru, but the moon, it gets so low some nights it looks like it's going to land, and the color looks different. And also, since we had in 2012, the summer of 2012, we had that first ever two sun eclipse with the moon
Hmm.
in 6,000 years, and one of the other suns, excuse me, was Alcyone of the Pleiades. So I don't know if that plays into it or not, but Mars is interesting. I really do feel from all my research and what I've been told, I feel like the Soviets and the Americans on a joint mission were there in '62 already once. So what's up there? Maybe it's a wasteland. I feel like two civilizations had a nuclear war up there at one point, maybe 12,000 years ago, and
Oh, for sure, yeah. And do you know what I kind of believe why Mars is the way it is? Kind of looks like a wasteland, because whoever was residing there possibly could have destroyed Mars and came down to Earth, and now it's finally getting livable on Mars again. That's one theory.
yeah, no, I agree, and I think the time that it might have happened, and this just came to me, is that I think it might have happened somewhere, maybe within the time period before Atlantis, Lemuria fell 12,000
Hmm.
years ago, where they had a nuclear exchange here on Earth. I feel like whatever side might have won that war up there on Mars, got involved up here, and maybe like I know Alfred Wembley was saying that Wembley was saying that the Pleiadians might have purposely destroyed part of Mars to get rid of the reptilians, and maybe then that was because then the Pleiadians incarnated here during Atlantis and Lemuria because out of guilt because of what they did in sending those evil entities here to Earth. You
Mm-hmm.
know, led to Earth. The Pleiadians came here to oversee them. Well, Atlantis Lemuria went wrong, so we're here again, incarnated here to get it right. These theories are all great to kick around, and it just
Mm-hmm.
seems like the more we do, the more the puzzle we put together. So, but I think all in all, I don't believe in the theory that Mars was hit by a meteorite. I think that meteorite they think about, I think it was a nuclear exchange,
Yes,
whether
yes.
whether it was a all-out galactical war or it was just I kind of look at it almost like it was a Soviet U.S. type of two powerful societies that probably got into it and had a big war there. And then again, too, I've heard a theory too, Lionel, that there's a small little fraction of Mars still that is green and habitable, like the Earth once was, like a small part.
Mm-hmm.
A piece
And
of it,
water there and everything, yes.
and maybe the rest of it has had enough time, like you were saying, to kind of start getting a little less poisonous, and maybe they figure that they can retreat back there. I don't know. I mean, but
It's
they have,
also, oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's also interesting to point out they have found pyramids on Mars.
yeah, and I think anybody that wouldn't agree with that is really blinder than Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles on a road kind of drive. I mean, when you think about it, and just even all the things that we've seen, all the pictures that show us that there is, all the theories, I think just innately, starseeds, we know that they're up there, and we know we have some kind of a thing with Mars, and I just really feel like that, and before we get into the Anunnaki, yes, Saturn, yeah, it's something. Those rings around Saturn are not natural. Those to me were
No.
replaced there. Not that, all these planets could be biodomes by ETs. Who the hell knows? But I'm saying the rings definitely were something that came later to use as a control mechanism, whether to that planet or to beam off of the moon to get Earth. That's the way I look at it. And getting into Nibiru, man, not to change subject real quick, I really do believe in it, and I believe
Hmm.
that Nibiru, these are beings that are humanoid, reptilian kind of like that have they are contacting people here on Earth. Some people have had challenge from them, and I don't trust them. I don't resonate with them. I don't trust them yet. I just something seems funky. I think I've even had them break in on a couple of radio broadcasts I've been on, and I can pull those up if anybody ever wants to see them after the show. Hit me up where voices came in like that, and I just think that yeah, it's just the whole galaxy's here to watch to see what happens. So it's really going to get interesting, and I think it's really going to start heating up within the next few years. But it's going to
Hmm.
take a little bit of time. I mean, we're still going to have, like in the U.S. here, people say, "Oh well, we're not going to have any more elections." Yeah, I think we're going to have one or two more presidential elections before shit
I
changes.
believe so too, yes.
Yeah, I think we'll have another rigged election with Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. Probably Hillary get it. Who the hell knows? It really don't matter. But either she'll be president for 8 years, and then we'll finally get together and get some new people in there that have a different philosophy. So and I know Canada with a lot of U.S. influence finally is Stephen Harper's taking a lot of heat up there. I don't know much about him, but I don't know anybody that cares for him in Canada.
No, we actually, I'm going to a protest on Friday. It's called, it's happening world, Canada-wide, Shut Down Canada. And I'm going to shut down Edmonton, and we're actually protesting against Stephen Harper. He's pretty much following what Obama did. He's trying to pass these terror privacy laws to pretty much because of terrorists, and it's invading our privacy. They're going to be able, if these bills pass, they're going to be able to pretty much read all our Facebook messages, our cell phone messages, totally invade our privacy. They'll be able to detain us without suspicion if they suspect us to be terrorists, and they do consider conspiracy theorists or anybody who doesn't go along with the government to be terrorists, and they could detain you. if they pass this bill and without any proof or evidence, and it's a total invasion. And if you see what happened after 9/11, with George W. Bush, he passed all those laws as well to invade your privacy, and that's what it's all about. False flags to take away our privacy. So this Friday, we're going to be, before the bills actually get passed, we're going to do our best to make our voices heard, marching out in -20, -30 weather. That's when you know you're a Canadian.
Yeah, and how much coverage do you think CTV or the CBC will give that? Ha ha ha. Yeah, you mentioned all the laws that were passed after 9/11 here, which is still really a sore point for me. I was really hugely into politics back then, but
Hmm.
considered myself awakened, and I knew the second 9/11 happened, I looked in that shisty motherfucker's eyes while he was reading to those school kids, and I knew that he was behind it. I knew that because if the truth was the truth, we were that incompetent and let 19 guys from a taco stand in wherever the hell they were from come over here and mastermind that, then we'd actually have real problems if it were real, which it wasn't.
It
And
wasn't.
yeah, it was as fake as a $3 American bill. And how people could even buy into that, it just really showed. It really the American people really disappointed me those first few years after 9/11. It was real sick and sad how even anybody could buy into it for 2 seconds. And they did it out of fear and ignorance and stupidity. And you
Much
mentioned,
agreed.
you mentioned earlier the news. I can't stand the mainstream news either. It gives me the willies to even be around it. But there's a lot of alternative sources out there, and I would encourage people to not just check out one. Check out dozens of them, a few of them, whatever, and cross-reference everything. And put the puzzle together and let it resonate with you. And act out of logic and act out of heart logic when you make your decision on what you think is going on, and not out of hate. No, those people over here are like this or those people are like that. Everybody,
Hmm.
it's the governments that are that way. The people want peace. The people want health care. The people want to get along and to take our rightful place among the stars. And then again, too, you mentioned like, Bush, Obama, Harper, Putin, all these people. Then again, too, they are just puppets, too. They are being controlled
Yes, they are puppets. That's 100% correct.
3 or 4
They,
levels above them, and people get so pissed off at. They'll see those Illuminati symbols like on a dollar bill here in America. People will be like, "Oh,
mhm.
Illuminati symbol." Well, I don't get into that because the thing about it is most people that will see that, and they know this too. It's counter control opposition. Either half the people will be like, "Oh, that's a bunch of bullshit," whatever. But then the other half that believe it, most of them will be like, "Oh God, oh, that's scary. That's the Illuminati. That's the devil." And they don't bother to check into really just how fucked up it is and how intricate and what it involves, and that it's not that cut and dry. You know what I mean? It's just
I actually have some information on that whole symbol on the dollar bill about the true occult meaning to it. And there's a good meaning to it and a bad meaning, and it's very educational. I don't know if you want me to get into it briefly on the show or if you want to move on to the Anunnaki, but
touch
there
on
is.
touch on that, and we'll jive into that'll take us into the
All right.
Anunnaki.
I'll briefly talk on that. I've been watching this one guy. I recommend everybody check him out, Mark Passio, and he's an expert in the occult, and he put it perfectly in this one video about, like, he knows all about the Freemasonry symbols and everything, and pretty much there's a lot more to that symbol than meets the eye, and there's a light meaning and a dark meaning. And the occult, it's not evil, it's just hidden knowledge. And there's dark occultists who use it for bad, and there's light occultists who use it for good. So the dark occultists use that symbol on the bill, and which the words in Latin pretty much translates into the coming of or announcing of the New World Order. And the New World Order could be good and bad as well. Like, there's the New World Order and the Dark Forces, where they want to. Well, we already know about all that. But then we need a new order on Earth. So there's the Dark Forces New World Order and the Light Forces New World Order. So what this dark occult, what this symbol means to them, is, if you notice the pyramid, it's not fully built. And I forget how he went in depth about it, about numerology, because that's huge with them. But pretty much at the bottom of the pyramid, somehow he connected it. I forget how it's done, but it's 666 at the pyramid, and that represents base consciousness. And that's pretty much what they want us to be, just totally brainwashed. Then at the top is 777, which is the ultimate consciousness, and that's what the eye represents. Is Lucifer or whatever, pretty much consciousness, ultimate consciousness. And what they're trying to do is the pyramid isn't fully built yet, so they're building up the pyramid, and they want to finish the pyramid, and they want to be at that 777 ultimate consciousness and have it's a pyramid scheme, and they want the whole world to be at 666 base consciousness. Now, a light occultist will look at that symbol, and they want to take the bricks off and crush it down, so it abolishes that whole 666 base consciousness. And they want a light occultist wants to spread the knowledge so everybody could achieve the 777 ultimate high state of consciousness. So that symbol could go both ways, and a lot of people get very paranoid about it. And I know when I was first learning, I thought it was the most evil symbol ever, but now I see there's two sides of it, and people have their own agendas, and it's really comes down to what their agenda is. But there's a lot more to it. It's not just pure evil. It can mean a very good symbol, and that's with a lot of things in Freemasonry and occultism. So I just wanted to speak on that briefly. Check out Mark Passio, and he will explain it more to you in depth very well.
Wow, that was really intriguing what you just said. Now you got me on one point I've got to make. The 666 at the base, right? And then the 777 at the top, which is super consciousness. So this 666 scare that we've always been under for hundreds of years here, that was probably a little misconstrued to keep people fucking controlled. So they really, they just used that instead of explaining what it was. It's just, 666 is the sign of the devil. Well, in essence, it really is, because it's the sign of low consciousness.
Exactly. It's base consciousness.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Right, exactly. And that's where we want to be.
And 777 is known as the God of perfection, divinity, ultimate consciousness. And, you know, that's a number that I have a lot of numerology that I go through, and 777 means a lot to me, and to the point my first tattoo, I'm planning on getting that tattooed, because it's in my head. It's just like it's meant to be, you know. I'm all about the 7. I think I told you that in when we first talked. Let's do the show at 7 o'clock my time, because I'm all about that 7.
7 o'clock your time, 6 o'clock on the Pacific Coast where I'm at.
You're evil. No, I'm joking.
Oh God, doom and gloom. Yes, I'm so evil. But I agree with you. 777 really, just in the thought, resonates with me more, has something that's nice. Where 666, I never really got hung up on, it's the devil, but still something innately deep in me thought, it's kind of shady, the number. And I didn't know if that was just because I was a little bit brainwashed maybe by religion, even though I've never really been religious, and I thought that. But I've always it's never resonated with me, and 777 really always has. And when you speak of the Illuminati, that ties into, a lot of people will label the Illuminati with the Anunnaki, and really the Anunnaki probably are the ones that started the Illuminati here, so to speak. I'd like to get, you wanted to go into the...
Oh, yeah. That's one of my main fortes, Larry, is the Anunnaki. That's what I've been doing most of my research on, and connecting the dots. I'll start my Illuminati talk. There's even on here, this is about our alien origins. I want to get right into it, where we came from. And, you know, the truth hurts sometimes, but of course it's a theory at the same time, but this is the truth for me anyhow. I've been doing a lot of research into the first civilization kind of known to man. I think they might have found something earlier, but it's pretty much, from my research, it's one of the first, but what I go off, and that's the Sumerians, which is before the Bible times, before the Egyptian times. And if you do some research, the Bible and the Egyptians, they took a lot of their stories from the Sumerian, and I view the Sumerian times to be the real deal about what was actually happening back then. And then I view Egyptian and the Bible and Christianity and all that just pretty much stories, like a one big story that they took from the Sumerian times. So with my Sumerians, the gods lived on the earth, the gods who created them, and they were called, or who created the humans, the Elohim. So that translates to gods. So it's not a single god, so it's gods, and they were physical entities, and there's tons of sculptures and statues, and they're all reptilian, giant in nature. So this leads me to believe that the Anunnaki are reptilian, and they came from Nibiru, according to the Sumerian tablets.
Mm-hmm.
And Nibiru comes around once every 3,600 years. Now, does this mean that Nibiru smashes into the Earth? No. Nibiru is twice the size of Earth. If that happened, there would be no Earth. I believe it comes in an orbit, and I do believe it kind of shifts the poles a bit. Not a complete pole shift, but it messes up our orbit, and that's why we're seeing so many natural disasters as we are today, because we don't know when it's coming, but it could come by, and there are Anunnaki who reside there. But according to the ancient Sumerian myth, they created humans to be slaves. And if you think about it, we have been slaves our whole life. We've always been slaves to the government, everything.
Not the cut too, but the gold. You know, when you think about,
Yep.
if they came here and used us as slaves to get all the gold out of the earth, which they needed. And when you think about gold, really, it's actually fucking worthless as far as doing anything material-wise with it, as far as building. But yet, it's so in our innate to like it. And I even think too that they were lizard people, and I think that they manipulated some of the original, maybe even some of the Pleiadian light body pure humans that were here, and they took that DNA and mixed it to dumb it down, cut those things off, use it as slaves, use us as slaves, and the Pleiadians talk about putting, they put codes in us to eventually wake us up into our cells and stuff like that. But this stuff is all relevant. And I think really they came here to use us as slaves, dumb us down a little bit, not to the point where we were totally incompetent, but to the point where they could keep a control on us through disinformation if they had to, and division by creating all these different languages on Earth.
Yes, sir. I was actually just going to get into that about the whole Palladian aspect of it, but I'll continue with the slave. The gold. It's actually interesting when you look into gold. It's actually an electricity producer, and it actually does have some technologies to it. I watched a whole documentary on it. I'm not an expert on it, but it's something to look up in your spare time. But not just gold. They pretty much want to mine.
Lionel, are you there? I think you got cut off, brother. After you started talking about the
Now
Anunnaki.
there's a few different theories out there. Oh, hold on a sec. Can you hear me?
Bye
Am I
bye.
there?
Bye
Sorry,
bye. Beam Charlie, loud and clear.
I just cut off for a second there. Okay, I'm back though. So you got to ask yourself, what did they mix our DNA with? Well, there is the theory of ancient Neanderthal that we're finding skeletons and stuff. So not monkeys, not apes, but Neanderthal men, which is one theory, which could be true, but they weren't the smartest guys around. And if you look at the human brain, well, I'm going to get into the human brain right now, for proof that I believe every human on Earth has reptilian DNA, and I actually have a video on my YouTube. One of my most proud videos I've ever made, with Dr. Samuel L. Douglas. It's called the Reptilian DNA Conspiracy Theory. And if you look at the brain, we got the reptilian brain, and this is in mainstream science. You know, you talk to a doctor, they call it the reptilian brain, and that's the part of the brain that it's the fight or flight, it's the anger, it's all the negative aspects that we all see with the reptilians, no emotion. But then we got the limbic part of the brain, and that's our emotional part of the brain, which we can obviously see that reptilians don't have, because they have no problem wiping out and killing mankind and all sorts of horrible, nasty stuff. Then we got the neocortex. The neocortex is the part of our brain that thinks, kind of the intelligence part, which I do believe the reptilians have that too, because don't get me wrong, the reptilians are extremely smart. And then we got our pineal glands, and the pineal gland is right above the reptilian part, right in the reptilian, the limbic section. So for me, this is proof that we do come from reptilians, and even when you're conceived at birth, within the first 3 months of, or when a lady gets pregnant or whatever, if you look at the fetus, it forms, within the first 3 months, it looks like a lizard, and it's crazy stuff. So for me, that's a lot of proof that we do have reptilian DNA from the gods who came down here, the Anunnaki, because it goes back to the Sumerian creation myth. And and it says in the Sumerian creation myth, we were made in the image of the gods. And in the Bible, it says we were made in the image of God as well. So that means that the gods and God are actually extraterrestrials, because they are physical beings. And we were made in their image, meaning we were made physically because they were physical beings. Now, the question is, who did they mix the DNA with? And in the reptilian DNA conspiracy video I suggest that they mixed it. I don't know how it came to be, but like you said, maybe there was Pleiadians on Earth before the reptilians came down, the Anunnaki. But maybe they mixed, because I believe that humans have Pleiadian DNA as well as reptilian DNA, and that's where our caringness comes in, and our emotional and our conscience to not do evil stuff. Because if it was just a Neanderthal, they weren't very smart, but our brains are supercomputers, super crazy systems. So I think they interbred or mixed DNA genetics with a different alien species, which could be of Pleiadians. It could be a different kind of. There's tons of different extraterrestrials out there, so who knows? But I believe it was a humanoid, and from accounts from Pleiadian contactees such as Billy Meyer and others, when they say that they've talked to the Pleiadian stuff, sometimes they appear in a humanoid form. So you never know. And if you look at a human, might just be me being paranoid or something, but I think there's a lot of reptilian aspects to us, or reptile aspects to us. So I believe that the Anunnaki came down here, they created us as slaves, mixed us with a different being, and they didn't really recognize the power that we had. They probably thought we'd just be dumb idiots and they could just control us, but as we could see, we're awakening, and we could vibrate at these higher frequencies, because reptilians are known to be low in frequency, and that's why this whole consciousness shift is coming, and we're in higher frequencies, and that's why they're getting nervous about what's all happening. So it's very, very interesting stuff with the Anunnaki. But like I said, for me, I have to accept the fact that we have reptilian DNA because we have a reptilian brain, and that the gods and the ones from Nibiru, and what they're saying when Nibiru comes back around here, that the gods are going to come and check up on humanity. And it's interesting about the flood and all that. The first account of the flood wasn't the Bible. It was in the Sumerian creation myth. It's called the Deluge. And that is pretty much the gods were just wiped out humanity. They saw what they created. They wiped us out. Some survived, and that's what they're saying. 3,600 years later, maybe the gods are going to come and see where we're at. And obviously, if you hear the accounts of fallen angels and stuff like that, those are the beings who stayed on Earth, which would be the reptilians that we have on the Earth now, who are obviously do not have our best intentions in mind. They're the ones calling the shots, if you ask me. And behind all this, like how you mentioned a bomb and all that, they're all just puppets to what I believe the reptilians. So the Anunnaki, if Nibiru does come, maybe the ones who still reside on Nibiru will come back and take a look at the Earth, and maybe we will have a galactic event between the beings who are on Nibiru now and the ones who stayed on Earth and pretty much screwed over humanity with the brainwashing and the wars and the murder. So it's a theory. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is the truth. You have to believe in it 100%. But I just find it very interesting how we have a reptilian brain and all these reptilian features, and in these sacred texts and everything, it says we were made in the image of the gods, and the Anunnaki, all these sculptures from ancient Sumeria and all that, they're all depicted as reptilian beings. If you go through every civilization, whether it's Asian civilization, they got the dragon, the Babylonian, everything. It's all serpent symbolism. And just one last point, Larry, I'd like to bring up is the caduceus. It's a symbol we see every single day on in hospitals, on ambulances, and it's that symbol of the two serpents going up that the pole with the two wings. And it looks exactly like DNA, and this is a symbol from the Greek mythology times, and DNA wasn't discovered until the 1900s and what it looks like and all that, so that means the ancients knew what it looked like. But why two serpents on these wings? That, to me, that means the serpents represents our DNA, and the reptilian DNA, and the wings represents the other alien species that they mixed our DNA with, showing that humans are actually reptilian and whatever, may it be Pleiadian or a humanoid alien. Now, this is shoved in our faces every single day. If you go to any hospital, on TV, ambulances, they all have this caduceus symbol. So how did they, and it looks exactly like DNA, so how did the Greeks have this knowledge, and why serpents? It's everywhere. So if you go back into history, you see this reoccurring theme of serpent and reptilian symbolism, and it's got me convinced anyhow. So that's my spiel on the Anunnaki and all that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you 100%. It's just in our face all the time, and it's so obvious that people don't stop to take a look and wonder what that is. They'll look at it and go, oh, well, it's just that way, and they don't stop to think that, yeah, and let's just say that it was a situation where it was like a hominoid, say a Pleiadian hominoid that was mixed with, but a Pleiadian humanoid would have been like a perfect humanoid, so to speak.
Exactly.
Almost in a light body. So a humanoid in a light body without genetically, and this is something that people give me shit for, but I really think like everything that they did to manipulate us, like giving men tissue to choke their prostates, all the issues that women have, mess with their bodies, even our teeth, even the way our teeth were infused into our gums, and
yes,
cause us problems. And in our light bodies, we don't we don't need all that. We're a light human type of body that can morph down into a raindrop if we have to, but in our physical, in that physical dimension where they live, the planet where they live, maybe on a higher dimension, they look like a humanoid, but they're more in a light body. They're not in that physical blood and bone. And that could even be where that term came from the Bible. And I know shoved down my throat at church, the sin blood. The sin
Hmm.
well, that sin blood in our angelic bodies could be that evil, could be that Anunnaki. And of course,
Yes.
rulers of the world have always used biblical texts or whatever book it was for a particular religion as a control mechanism. So change
Hmm.
through the stories to make this seem that way or make that seem this way, and it just really gets me. And that's a good point about Nibiru too. Maybe those people that are still on Nibiru have a score to settle with the people that are still here. Maybe they didn't like that, and I kind of always thought that maybe there was even a division among the Anunnaki society like that, that they weren't all in favor of doing that kind of shit to us here.
Hmm.
And
Because
so
they could have very well been a slave race themselves who finally snapped out of it, and then they just do the same thing over again, make another slave race. It's sad, but one thing you got to think about is I'd like to think there's good and bad in every kind of species because there's good and bad humans. So who knows? There's could be good and bad Anunnaki. So can't rate anything out.
no, I would agree. And you mentioned the manipulation. I really think that's what the Greys are. I think the Greys at one time were a humanoid type of race that were tricked out and fooled and manipulated and sold their souls basically to stay in a matrix and have technology that's 100 years old, like we have now, doled out to them. And instead of reaching for the skies and that consciousness, I think that they stayed in that. And I think some also got away from that. And hence I've heard of in the Pleiades a blue type of race that looks like the Greys, but they're the blues and they're the distant
Yep.
of the Greys trying to, and some of them are trying to help their ancestors to get their soul back, claim their identity. But that's the perfect yin and yang. And I meant to do a video on that. I actually had, and it got deleted, about using that as an example between which way humanity could go. We could either turn into a robot matrix type of,
Transhumanism.
yes, transhumanism, or we could reach for the consciousness and go there, man. I mean, I think that, and that's kind of the time we're in now, and all these parallel realities coming together. And it's fun because we talk and we put this puzzle together and all these things. And it's funny, all these theories we're putting out, I really think that they're, with all the different parallel realities in the multiverse, all of these things have mostly truth based to them that we're saying.
Hmm. For
It's
sure.
all happened.
There's one more thing I want to add on about the Anunnaki. Um, Now, they say, how there's a shield that kind of covers, I don't know if you call it the ozone layer or whatever, but I believe that there was a shield that the Anunnaki put over the Earth to not allow other aliens in. And it's interesting, I know you've done a lot of research on Tesla. And Tesla, I don't know too much about it. I just started researching about it, but it was called the Philadelphia Project or something like that, where they broke a hole in this shield. And they even said Tesla, and I forget who else was working on it, they were very concerned about what happened because they're saying now other entities are going to be able to get into Earth. And ever since those days, we've had so many more aliens encounters, like starting off with the Greys, with Roswell and all that, and who knows how many other. They call it the space-time continuum or something. Are you familiar with that? Because I know you look into Tesla quite a bit.
Oh, a little bit. You might be referring to the Philadelphia experiment, but you just
Yes.
something really good there. Like, since that's happened, you're right. We've had all this happen. But also, have you noticed, like through my research, around that time too, especially after the two bombs were let off in World War II, the incarnates that started coming here from the star systems, whether it was the Pleiades, Arcturus, Alpha Centauri, some of the good Syrians, wherever, a million different, it doesn't have to be those big names, but they started being incarnated in here to kind of backdoor in against free will and save Earth. And I think that has a lot to do with people like us that have incarnated here. You mentioned, we all
Hmm.
have reptilian in our DNA. But
Exactly.
people that are starseed incarnees, have you noticed? So, like us, we have a little bit more sympathy and empathy for humanity than some of these people.
100%. Very sensitive to
Yeah,
what's going on.
when we get hurt, it's a sadness, a cry. You know, we're crying and say we are hurt. But some of these people that are reptilian based completely in consciousness, they don't get like that. They get pissed off. They just get fucking mad
They're psychopathic.
over fucking nothing. And we probably all been in relationships with people like that, known people like that,
Oh,
and
of course.
they're nutty. They would flip out and have a stroke if you walked left instead of right. But yet, if you just found out your parents were killed in the car crash, they would have about a quarter of that sympathy for you, and it would only last about an hour. I mean, and I'm not even trying to exaggerate. That's just kind of the way that they think. If you step
Hmm.
left, you step
Oh,
right. But if you
definitely.
step right, well, left, and you just have to brace them. They want to just argue, and they can't stand peace, and they can't stand people getting along, and they like that racy drama, and I don't like it, and starseeds don't resonate with it either. And I think there's a little bit of a difference there. Yes, in our bodies, us incarnates here in our bodies, we have all that reptilian DNA too to hold us
Hmm.
back, the yin and the yang inside of us, the junk DNA, whatever they want to call it. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, really, if you're dealing with them, I think we're so much more powerful than them, but when you're dealing with them in just a strict 3D environment under those rules, they've got the upper hand because they don't have any emotion.
Exactly. And I just wanted to say, there's a lot of hybrids out there, and bloodlines, a lot of bloodlines, and some have more reptilian bloodlines than others, and some have more Pleiadian bloodlines than others, and we could see that through a lot of people, like how we were just talking about these certain people. So I believe that their bloodline came from a more reptilian aspect, and then we got people who are more on the Palladian side, who are more empaths. So for sure.
Yeah, hence, here's a good example: Tesla, Pleiadian; Edison, Reptilian. I mean,
Exactly. He stole Tesla's ideas, and it was I believe it was the Rothschilds, who are well-known reptilian schmucks, but they're the ones who are behind it all to silence the Rothschilds, or is it the Rockefellers? They silenced Tesla because here we are. He had free energy for the world. They don't want that. They want to keep the oil going and all that and the destruction. So that's why they silenced Tesla.
well, yeah, the guy had technology. Now I was seeing something where he even had a video camera type thing in the late 1800s. And Christ, we didn't have anything like that for another 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, this technology is held back from us. We probably should have had computers by the 40s, probably the internet by the 50s or 60s, at least early 70s instead of the mid
Yeah.
90s. And I mean, and when I say mid 90s, I mean we're talking 28K and pay by the hour to get it. So really 50 to 100-year-old technology that just gets hoarded from us to the real energy gets hoarded from us because they are, and it's so much more than the money with them. How it's so long line, that it's not about the power with them more.
Hmm.
It's so much money that it doesn't even matter, but it's their power. They don't want everybody on earth to have all these resources.
They want to return as the gods. They want to be the gods, like the Anunnaki gods. They want people to worship them, literally. The all these elite. That's what they're shooting for. That's what they want. They want the power. They want to be worshipped. They want to drain all our energy. It's the sad reality, that they're out there, but there's good out there too. So we ain't going down without a fight. But now we're finally exposing these evil families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Bushes, and with stuff like the internet, which I believe was originally a tool from the New World Order. It's backfiring on them. They created it to invade people's privacy, but now I think half the people who are awakening to everything have learned from the internet, and there's just so many posts on the internet, they can't take them all down. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that there.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that they didn't realize how big it was going to be. And I think
Yep.
so too. This is so funny. A friend of mine had this theory out of the blue, and it just so resonated with me. You know how they're always talking, right, Lionel, about the make and it could, how they're always talking about the grid going down and shit all the time. The grid's going.
Yep.
He thinks that what may end up happening is that there's so much out there, cell phones, technology, everything. He thinks that it may just override everything to where they can't put a control on it anymore or charge for it. Does that make sense? He thinks that if anything, the reverse could also happen to where everything is just they just can't control it anymore. You know, and
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's what is happening is they can't they're doing their best with these new privacy bills and everything and their censorship. They're trying to censor a lot of truthers. I know even myself I've been censored with the videos that I've made. So I definitely think their plan has backfired on them because it's just gotten out of so many people use the internet now and everybody's dependent on their phones and everything that there's just too many people it's too hard for them to censor it all. So that's why we got to use the internet as a tool, which soon whenever we're off this topic I'd like to get into my organization, the New World Order Freedom Fighters, and how we're doing that.
how about we do that right about now, Funk Soul Star brother?
You got it. All right. Well, I have created a worldwide organization, the New World Order Freedom Fighters. You could join us on Facebook. Just type it up, NWO Freedom Fighters. It'll pop right up, and I'll accept you right in. Pretty much the history of the New World Order Freedom Fighters. I started it on YouTube years ago, and it was just a YouTube movement, and I wasn't too serious about it. And then about a year ago, I got on Facebook, and I started the Facebook group, and it started off slowly, but now we're growing at a very fast rate. We're almost at 2,000 members, and that's just in 1 year, and we're growing at a very fast rate, and we're planning to take it way further than the internet. We're planning it to be kind of like how Anonymous has their organization, but pretty much we don't wear the masks. But Anonymous, we work hand in hand. I've worked with Anonymous members before. We have Anonymous in our group. But pretty much what the New World Order Freedom Fighters is all about is uniting humanity together regardless of religion, gender, sexuality, race, because these are all things that the global elite have used to divide us as human beings. And now is the time to wake up the zombies, as I say. So this is what it's all about. And still, on the group, we have people sometimes get in arguments about stuff like religion. So that's why we got a firm rule: no religion in the group. Um, like you could talk basic about religion and stuff, but no promotion, no hatred of it. And the administration team, we're spot on there. We're monitoring at all times to make sure that there's no division. If somebody comes in there and divides, they get kicked right out. And what we're trying to shoot for is we're shooting for uniting people through love, but it's also a network to have everyone explain their or to put their knowledge on what's happening in the world. It's an information network to post about what's happening and to expose the New World Order. And everybody's welcome to join, and whatever they know about the New World Order, and it's everything, the New World Order, Illuminati, extraterrestrials, UFOs, you name it, anything along those lines. It's to inform people, wake people up, and knowledge. It's all about knowledge. I always say knowledge is power. So it's a great, great organization, and we're hoping as soon as we get more funds and everything, we're hoping to take this worldwide. Well, it's already worldwide, but we want to start getting marches going and everything, and hopefully in 10 years it'd be idealistic to be as big as Anonymous if possible, and have like Anonymous has every year, the Million Mask March. We want to be at that point to have the New World Order Freedom Fighter March. And the name is actually pretty interesting in itself as well. Of course, we're fighting the New World Order, but we are also fighting for a New World Order, Because as I was saying earlier, we got the New World Order that's being run right now under the Dark Forces, which we do not want. But we do need a New World Order under the Light Forces if we want things to ever get better. We need a different change in system. So we're also fighting for this New World Order under the Light Forces. So that's what the group is all about. So I really encourage everybody to join, and it's a really great group. Everybody's become friends on there, and I know you're in the group as well, Larry, so you could testify to that. It's a great organization.
Yeah, it is a great organization. And I wanted to say real quick, too, I really love your point about it. It really typifies the yin and the yang here. The good New World Order, bad New World Order. We don't want it dominated by them. We want what they're selling, but we don't want it from them. And we don't want to buy it. You know, it's like I said on a show one time, whether it's communism, socialism, capitalism, or any kind of ism, if it wasn't for the greed and the power control that was involved in it, all those systems would be good systems. Of course, in a society like that, we wouldn't need to put a label on a system like that. But exactly, we want it, but we don't want it under a control form still, an illusionary matrix, again, like making us think we've got all this control all of a sudden, but we're still caught under these rules and under this game, not allowed to be completely who we are as, as star beings or whatever.
We want it to unite under love, and you know what? Love is the key thing, and I've spent years, the past 10 years, doing what I'm doing, and the conclusion I've come to, and I think about it every single day, what's the solution? What's the answer? And it's love. And if you look at every great teacher in the history of humanity, whether it's Buddha, Jesus, the list goes on, all those big figures, their main message wasn't religion, wasn't being controlled. Their main message was love. It's just the religions that have took that and warped their meanings. So all the great teachers throughout time, the message is love. I believe 100% that the answer is love. So that's what it's all about. Creating a new world order under the light forces based on love, because that is the solution. And I think anybody who disagrees must be on the reptilian side.
Yeah, totally. Love is the key because in love, all problems really do disappear. And understanding, no judgment. That's why in every
Exactly.
you never have any judgment. I lost my ability to judge, but at the same time, I have an extreme bullshit detector. So
Same here.
I understand all innate possibilities that I could either be talking to Joseph Stalin or Mother Teresa, but all I can do is take it now moment by now moment until, until whatever needs to happen happens. But I can not judge, but I can know, if that makes sense. And I think that
Exactly.
that's the position people need to get into because, you're an infinite being, but yet your body here on Earth could die at any second for any reason. So we're greater than we realize, but at the same time, when we get ego about us with it, it gets really, really dangerous.
We got to do our best to lose all ego. And there's just one more thing I wanted to announce that I haven't really. This is kind of the announcement. Because I haven't told the New World Order freedom fighters too much about it. They know kind of a sense about it, but we're starting a new project. Me and a member in the New World Order fighters, Ninx. He's from the Philippines. Great guy. He's definitely a Starseed. He identifies himself as an angel Starseed. But we're creating another organization called the New World Earth United. And this is pretty much going to be kind of a test run at this new world while we're still living in this new world order under the dark forces. But we're starting this new group, and it's going to be released it's going to begin April 17th, 2015, and it's pretty much a test run, and we're going to try and create another society kind of based on what the new world should be like, and based on love. And the New World Order Freedom Fighters is going to be like our army, not in a violent way, but in exposing. So it's kind of going to be like a division of the New World Earth United. But we got some very big plans. I'm super excited about it, so I'll keep everyone updated. And I encourage everyone, once that comes out, to join the New World Earth United and see how this test run goes while we're still living in the dark New World Order. But the way I see it, by the time I die, I want a legacy, and I want it to continue, my work and all of our work to continue after we die for the future generations. So I think it's important that we have this society set up so it could carry on into the golden age or into the new age that's to come once the dark forces do get defeated, which they will, because light will always prevail in the end, and I'm a firm believer in that. So I just wanted to announce that.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. And I've always said too that, you're talking about the society, that part of this is going to be done by us. This isn't going to be just a bloody revolution or a bloody typical revolution at all. It's more of a walking away from it, just creating
Exactly.
our own societies out of love and kind of shifting away from that old paradigm. And yeah, there may be a tiny bit of bloodshed because of the old energies that still want to fight and control it. But I like what you said about the divisions in the groups. I kind of liken it to the two groups that are near and dear to my heart, the Pleiadians group and the Fringe Thinkers.
Hmm.
We try to keep it of a total, complete love vibration type of thing. And the Fringe Thinkers is would be more like the Freedom Fighters, more of a tell it like it is, kind of anything, as long as it's not insulting to anybody, really goes. And I like the way you talked about they're together, but it's separate sides of the light,
Yes.
kind
The
of.
New World Earth United is exactly going to be like that. We're going to that's going to be one of the rules, actually, is if you want to talk about the New World Order and all the dark and evil stuff that is going on in the world, which we do need to recognize because it's never going to go away if we don't face it head on. But if you want to post something like that, you're going to post it in the New World Order and Freedom Fighters. But the New World Earth United is going to be a totally love-based frequency, just like how you mentioned the Pleiadians and French thinkers. So pretty much the same concept idea. And I'm not stealing it from you, Larry.
No, I know. I think subconsciously I might have stole part of it from you watching your old videos. But it's all the same. We're all in this for the same reason, and
Exactly.
I think it's wonderful, man. Is there anything else that's pressing and that's on your mind tonight before we wrap up this really great show, in my opinion?
Yeah, that's about it. I just want to say I think a lot of us are star seeds, Pleiadian star seeds, and I know for myself, I feel like this is my mission in life. I can't. A lot of people tell me, "Why do you keep doing this? You're never gonna change things." But if people keep up that attitude that things are never gonna change, just give up. And me, from the minute I was born, I knew I had a mission in life, and it was kind of blurred. But now I fully know my starseed mission, and I will never give up. And that's what the main message I want to give to people is to always fight for the light, fight for the truth, and fight for the love, and find your mission, because every single human being on Earth, regardless of what kind of star seed you are, you have a mission. It's all just about enlightening yourself, raising your consciousness to that 777 level, and figuring out what your mission is, what part you have to play in this world. And once you figure out that mission, if you stick to that mission, don't give up, don't listen to the people who try and bring you down, then you will definitely, or the world will definitely see better days. So in closing, I just want to say, everybody who's listened to this, please join the New World Order Freedom Fighters if it sounds like something you're interested in. And also check out my YouTube, The Alien Contactee. I got over 360 videos uploaded, and some are satire. You got to remember, a lot some are satire, and sometimes I lose my temper, but it's all part of the character. And then a lot of them are serious, so definitely check that out. It's fun, and you'll learn a lot. And that's pretty much all I got to say. And thanks for having me on, Larry. I feel very privileged and honored.
Oh man, the honor was all mine, and I don't know if
Excuse me.
I don't know if I touched on it earlier, but I wanted to also say Lionel, I want to tell everybody out there that if you doubt this guy's sincerity, hey, I listened to this guy a couple years ago predict basically a power outage at the Super Bowl that was coming up in New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
a 45-minute power outage. Now, keep in mind, for those who don't watch the NFL, the only other power outage in the history of the whole NFL was for 14 minutes on a meaningless regular season, nothing game out at a shitty stadium called Candlestick in San Francisco that was falling apart. So other than that, the only other power outage, and then in the Super Bowl, there's a 45-minute power outage, and the hospital, they're blaming the power company. Power company blames the hospital for being on the grid. The NFL, there nobody took accountability for it, but regardless, the whole thing was just nuts. And I mean,
I made those videos before the Super Bowl, and everything I said happened.
yes, you did, and
And I
that's
was surprised by it myself. And again, with this year's Super Bowl, I predicted that the Patriots would win. And there would be it'd be fixed, and sure enough, 1 yard line, he throws a pass and intercepts. It's very obvious. And I'm not saying I'm a fortune teller and I have special abilities. I'm not saying that at all. I just study the agenda, and once you know the New World Order's agenda, the Dark Forces, it's very easy to predict these things because it's so obvious once you're awake and enlightened to that point. So I'm not claiming to have supernatural powers. It's just once you're that educated, it's so easy to predict what they're going to do.
so Lionel, are you telling me that if you had all that money on the line and you only needed 2 feet and you had the greatest running back in the league, you would run it to him 3 times instead of throw it into traffic?
Yeah, it's common sense. It's common sense, like 1 yard line. And I watched replays of that video, and it looks like he's actually thrown to the Patriots player. It's just unbelievable. But I knew it was going to happen, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong." And then, sure enough, and another thing about that, why didn't he call the Patriots call a timeout? They had 3 timeouts
There
left.
you go. I meant to talk to you about that, and I started thinking about that night. And even Boomer Esiason calling the game was like, "Why don't they call?" He was like, "Why in the hell are? Yeah, why in the fuck wasn't Belichick calling a timeout to conserve time?" And then I got this feeling in my stomach, like, God, I know they only need less than a yard, and they got the best running back. And I just knew, I had this innate feeling something was going to happen. And like I told you, even if it weren't rigged, which it was, the
Mhm.
ego of doing that, the ego
Oh,
would be even worse than the riggedness. So
for
yeah,
sure.
and I think we all kind of in our minds knew that whoever won that game, which I thought it would be the Patriots too, but that it was going to be a score like a 31-28, 28-24. And so these things play out, and that's not to say that all these people involved are involved in the corruptness of it, but there's little scenarios that can play out. Well, if this happens, we're going to do this. If this happens, we're going to do that, but we're going to make sure. But yeah, Belichick not. And if anybody knows anything about football and really look at it, there's no rhyme or reason why that play call, and there's no rhyme or reason. And I've coached football why
Hmm.
Belichick wouldn't have been calling his timeouts because they were. I mean, I don't care if it was you or me back there. I'd give good odds 2 feet behind that line. Wilson could have snuck it 1 or 2 times too, even
Yep.
and got in. But that's just that. And I wanted to really thank you for coming on the air, man. And I usually ask people to tell everybody where they can find you out on the World Wide Web, but I think you pretty much laid that down for
Yes,
everybody.
sir.
Okay, I want to thank you for coming on, and I also want to at this time say this is Rocken Larry Locken. You can find me on the Pleiadians group, of course, Lionel's New World Order Freedom Fighters. You can find me in Fringe Thinkers, all of our regional groups that we have. I'd like to give a shout out to Leah Shapiro, Alien Tribe, head of the Pleiadians group, as well as everybody else that admins for these groups. I love all you guys so much, and you can also find us on Twitter, Google Plus, and YouTube. And I think that I'm about out of breath now, so I think that's a wrap, my brother. Thank you so much for coming
Right
on.
on. Thank you. I hope to be on the show again someday.